Hi, this is a Technology RideCast. I'm Mark Farley, and our special guest today is Chris Evans. How you doing, Chris?
Yeah, hi Mark, I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, really good on this dreary winter's day here in January.
The lovely January.
Yesterday, the big news was that HPE is acquiring Simplivity. I need to just make a little disclosure here. I've started doing some contracting work at HPE, and it's exciting for me, but there's only so much I can say about this deal other than I'm excited about it. But you're a guy that always thinks this stuff through. What are your first impressions?
So Mark, I will just say that I've also done work for Simplivity and HPE. Having said that, I don't think it affects my opinion in this instance. I think it's a really good deal for both companies. I think obviously Simplivity needed to be acquired if we look at the price. It was 650 million on about 276 million of investment. So clearly they possibly could have got a higher price if there was a bit of a pricing war going on there, and maybe there wasn't. Having said that, I think it's great technology, and I think HPE needs something in their arsenal other than the store virtual technology that can really take on people like Nutanix and VMware with the VxRail platform. Let's just look at the technology for a second. The Simplivity technology was basically very, very tightly integrated into VMware's vSphere platform. It also had an accelerator card in there that implemented their dedupe technology. And if you know the history of the guy who founded the company, Doran Kemple, one of his previous companies was a company called Diligent, and they invented a dedupe technology which went into IBM, and IBM used it on their backup platform for dedupe. So he's pretty hot on that sort of technology, and that's one of the key components of their platform, and that gives them the ability to deliver some of the features they do much more effectively than say a store virtual does. They spent an extra couple of years. They took about 3 or 4 years to come to market, and they spent a lot of that time building their file system out. So they took extra investment up front, and they spent a lot of time to make sure they got the technology right before they came to the market.
Yeah, so everybody looks at the financial aspect of a deal like this, but from a Simplivity perspective, what are some of the other advantages of being scooped up by HPE?
I certainly think that it gives Simplivity a much broader market to access, which is great. They hopefully they should be able to sell their technology into a hugely larger environment of customers. I think there's the chance that technology can be integrated into other platforms. HPE have been very good recently in trying to bring their platforms together and talk to each other natively. So a lot of the backup technology integrates with 3PAR at a snapshot level, which is pretty neat. So I can see that there's potentially some cross-fertilization of that technology, which could be really good. And also it'll be interesting to see how it affects the wider market, because it's the start here perhaps of an HCI consolidation piece.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point, right? Who do you think this deal affects most in the industry? Obviously besides HPE and Simplivity.
Yes, I think people might think Nutanix is probably under impact here at some stage, and perhaps you could look and say they maybe are. And I think their share price is I think it's down about 6 or 8% today. But then, to be honest, their share price has been up and down a lot. But I look at it and think, well, you've got Dell EMC with VxRail and the vSAN platform, so they potentially might be impacted. But I perhaps would look at 2 other areas where I'd see more impact. One, maybe Cisco with SpringPath, because I don't think the SpringPath technology was as well developed when that company was acquired by Cisco. So I think Cisco's solution could look a bit weaker from an HCI perspective. And of course, this is the start of the consolidation piece we've just mentioned. And we could now see a lot of other HCI vendors or people who were storage software vendors who made themselves into HCI vendors, the likes of people like Maxter and so on. You could see them under pressure. And we already know that, for example, Atlantis decided to move back towards VDI because that was seen as a better sweet spot for their technology. So I think those other HCI solutions could now come under a lot of pressure, because who's going to buy them?
Yeah, do you see any other deals like this on the horizon?
At this stage, I don't. I'm not sure who else would be filling in those gaps, unless, of course, Cisco decided they needed somebody else to do that. There's one other company we haven't talked about, of course, and that's NetApp. Oh. And NetApp haven't actually brought an HCI solution to the market. I wrote a post sort of February-ish last year saying, will they develop an HCI solution? And we heard from George Kurian at their event in Colorado, the SolidFire event, that they potentially were looking at it, but they're not exactly sure how they would implement it. But to be honest, as yet, nothing's come to the market.
Yeah, one would have to think that they weren't involved at all in this deal as somebody else that might have been an interesting acquirer.
Yeah, I remember the discussion. I think George said expect to see NetApp implement HCI in a different way. Now, I guess what that meant is we're not going to go out and buy some software from somebody, and I would imagine they're trying to do something that uses the SolidFire technology. I did postulate that potentially because SolidFire could be run in a separate container or in a separate area on the platform. Maybe they could build out a scale-out solution where SolidFire was the storage component, but I guess we've yet to see that.
Well, Chris, it's always great having you on. You've got really interesting insights. You're a deep thinker about this business. Really appreciate it.
It's been great. Thanks again, Mark.